Hello, welcome to my channel. I hope you like today's video. It's a little bit different because I don't usually do architectural things. And today I did the gatehouse of Hampton Court Palace. And I used watercolor. You can see my palette out here. I never wash it off. I like all the colors that develop on a palette. And I just make an extra mess when I do my paintings. And I'm searching for the reddish pink of the brick. It's very ancient brick, and you don't see that color in brick nowadays. I suppose some people try to fake it, and I don't know how they made it, but it's sort of a pinkish reddish brown. So I'm using raw sienna, alizarin crimson, and a little of that purple that you can see there at the top of my palette, to try and get this soft red color for the brickwork. The colors are very limited in this painting. The pinkish red of the brickwork, the green of the trees, which in real life are not there. I always think that there should be some trees either side of the gate, but there are not. It's just a very long stony driveway up to the gatehouse. But I put trees in because I would like to see trees there. And so there's the red, the green, and the reflected blue in the windows, and the sky itself, which I put in after a very pale blue, and the greyish white of the stonework on the face of the gatehouse, which is also very ancient and worn and not as white as you'd think it would be. They don't paint it. And so I've had to work on that a little bit because of the starkness of the paper. I didn't want anything that white, so I mixed in a blue-grey colour and used that over all the areas that would have been stone white. Also, I want to say that if you look at photographs of the gatehouse, you'll see that my drawing is not an exact drawing. There are bits that are a little bit different because I did it late at night, the drawing, and I think I was probably tired. My eyesight maybe saw things that weren't there or interpreted things differently to their to reality. So my gatehouse is a little different to the original gatehouse, but it still gives you an idea of that gatehouse. It's also a little taller and more elegant than the actual gatehouse, which is quite squat and not as tall as you'd think a gatehouse for a royal palace would be. The palace, I think, was built by Cardinal Wolsey, and Henry, on an invitation, went to visit and took a liking to it, and Wolsey just gave him the palace. I wouldn't have done it myself, but there you go. I suppose when you wanted to stay on the right side of Henry, you gave him your palace. I mostly use a flat brush, and these brushes are the latest ones I bought very cheaply from Five Below, and they don't hold the water as well as some of my brushes. So I don't know why I didn't change it out, but I didn't. I persevered, and it didn't do too bad a job actually. I used a small flat and a small round to paint almost the entire palace gatehouse, and I think I managed to achieve the right color. These colors have been in my palette for so long I cannot remember what color each one actually is, but I think this is a Viridian because I know I used to use Viridian green in watercolor all the time, and some yellow, but I don't know what type of yellow. Sorry about that. I don't wash my palette off or change the colors out very often, years in fact, to be honest. And I like the mess that's on the palette. I think the colors, you could do a lot with them. They sort of mix and blend, and they work very well. Whatever I'm using, watercolor, which I paint with very infrequently, acrylics, which I paint mostly for my YouTube videos, or water mixable oils, I have a little formula. I usually paint my mid-tone first and then add my shadow and then my highlights. With watercolor, you have to leave your highlight. It's your highlight basically is the white of the paper. And when I'm doing trees, as I'm doing here, I put a sort of mid-tone green down and I make it very watery, and then I just put in a bluish green, or even just blue for the shadow. I just sort of dot it in and sort of blunt out or blot out any hard edges. My way of painting window reflections is to leave a sketchy amount of white paper, dot in some very watery blue, and add a darker blue or grey for the depth of the shadow, the edges of the window frame, things like that, that throw a shadow. And I think my windows come out looking quite good. I can't think of any other way to explain how I do them, but I don't paint the whole window, let's put it that way. I leave some white in there. After I finished this painting, I allowed it to dry, and then I used permanent micro pens. I like to use Micron, and I think I used a number 8 for this, which is not the finest of them. It's a little bit on the thicker side, not the thickest of them either. And I outlined everything in with the Micron pen, and I was quite pleased with the finished effect. I'll be doing a series of palaces and castles of England. I'm always very interested in British history. I grew up in England, and I've been to Hampton Court. It's a beautiful old palace, although part of it was pulled down by, I think it was William and Mary, and rebuilt because they didn't like the old-fashioned Henry VIII apartments, and they wanted something a bit different. So what you see is this gatehouse. You see Henry's Great Hall. The rooms above it weren't on view when I was there. You see the chapel that he and Anne Boleyn and his wives used. And then beyond that are the palaces that, palace rooms that William and Mary built. But it's a very interesting, the old kitchens there, the old Tudor kitchens. I found the Tudor part of the house very interesting and very evocative. You almost felt the ghosts there. And William and Mary, that was quite interesting too, but not as interesting to my mind. I just love the history of Henry VIII and his 6 wives, and the shenanigans that went on through that court, Wolsey giving him the palace itself. The palace is built on the southern part of the Thames, or western part of the Thames, where it sort of curves round and goes south. And it's very close to the water. And then it's got large grounds that you can wander through. And I think there's a maze at the back too that you can walk through and try and find your way out. It's a very interesting place to visit if you ever go to London. I don't know how other people paint with watercolor, but I find I'm always reinforcing my colors. I start off with something and then it's a little too faint as it dries. I have to wet it again and add more color. I sort of build a watercolor painting up in layers. I think that's the best way to explain it. If I think a color is too strong or I want to blot out clouds in the sky, I use paper towel. I find just laying that over the wet paint sort of takes a certain amount of it away and gives you a nice sort of misty effect. It's especially effective if you're trying to make clouds. So here's the finished painting. I think I'm pleased with the effect. And I use a micron archival pen to paint in a few of the bricks and outlines, and I think it was very effective. I'm very pleased with the result, and I'll try this technique again when I do other castles. I'm going to do Windsor next. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed painting it, and please like, share and subscribe. That helps my channel grow, and I'd really appreciate it if you could find time to do that. Thank you. Bye bye for now.